So you're sitting at the boarding gate, right? You're clutching your phone. Maybe you're staring out that massive pane of glass at a commercial jet.
Yeah, just waiting to board.
Exactly. And you usually just see a machine, like you look at the giant graphic painted on the tail, and you probably assume it's the result of, simple corporate bureaucracy.
Right, like a room full of executives in suits just picked a nice shade of blue, slapped a bird on it, and called it a day.
Right. We treat it like a coat of paint, just a purely aesthetic choice made to look pretty on a runway.
But dive into the actual history of corporate branding,
Mhm.
especially in aviation, and that assumption completely shatters.
Oh, it shatters into a million pieces
Yeah,
because we are looking at a design landscape that is quite literally a battleground.
absolutely.
We're talking clashing egos, threats of labor strikes, and deep psychological manipulation playing out at 30,000 feet.
It's all wild stuff.
It really is. So today we're taking a stack of design histories, brand overviews, and historical excerpts to trace the turbulent evolution of American Airlines.
Here we're going to explore how a single company's logo doesn't just sell tickets, but actually functions as a mirror for, massive tectonic shifts in global industry and corporate strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this because we see these logos every day, but the sheer friction of their creation is just wild.
Yeah.
And to understand the modern brand, I mean, we really have to look at what they were originally trying to sell.
Right, because the beginning of commercial aviation is a completely alien landscape compared to what you and I experience today.
Totally different world.
Yeah, so rewind to 1926. American Airlines didn't even exist in the form we recognize. You had small outfits, like Colonial Air Transport,
Right.
and their primary business wasn't flying families to vacation destinations in Florida or anything. They were flying mail between New York and Boston.
Right. Postal contracts were like the absolute lifeblood of early aviation.
Oh, 100%.
The government subsidies for moving mail were really the only way these companies could keep their engines running. I mean, you
Yeah.
were hauling canvas sacks, not passengers.
Exactly. And it wasn't until a major wave of consolidation in 1930 that dozens of these, small regional mail carriers were cobbled together under a holding company.
Which was called Aviation Corporation, right?
Yep, Aviation Corporation. And then finally, on June 11th, 1934, American Airlines emerges as this unified entity under its first president, Cyrus Rowlett Smith.
Which is such a great name.
It really is. And they absorbed all these outfits with incredibly evocative names, like Robertson Aircraft Corporation and Southern Air Transport.
So you suddenly have this newly unified massive company in 1934, and they desperately need a face.
Yeah, they need a singular logo.
And you might imagine they hired some prestigious Madison Avenue advertising firm to carefully craft their image,
I
right?
don't think so.
But the first real logo was actually designed by an employee named Goodrich Murphy.
Really?
Yeah, he created this highly detailed blue circle, and inside the circle there's a globe. And standing on top of that globe is a giant, majestic eagle with its wings raised high. And flanking the eagle are two red A's with this diagonal line shooting between them.
Wow. Okay. So the visual complexity there was staggering. I mean, you have the bezel ring, the vein, the letters, all of it rendered in deep reds and blues that actually fought each other for contrast a bit.
It was a lot to look at.
But it was absolutely packed with literal symbolism. The red, white, and blue combination wasn't an accident. I mean, it was a direct, undeniable tether to the United States flag.
But here's my absolute favorite detail about this early design. It's the origin of the eagle itself.
Oh, do tell.
Goodrich Murphy didn't spend months sketching eagles in the wild to capture the fierce American spirit or anything.
No?
No. He literally spied the image of the eagle in a promotional booklet for a Scottish hotel.
You're kidding. A Scottish hotel?
I am not kidding.
Yeah.
He looked at a Scottish hotel brochure and decided, yes, that is the vibe of the flagship American airline. He just lifted it.
That is hilarious. But, what's fascinating here is how perfectly that messy, borrowed origin aligns with the broader design philosophy of the 1930s through, like, the mid-1950s.
How so?
Well, look at airlines globally during this era. The logos were intensely literal. They were, illustrative.
Right, because early air travel wasn't a flying bus. It was an exclusive, glamorous, almost mythical experience.
Exactly. Putting on a pilot's uniform with that detailed AA logo was an immense privilege. You were an aviator, an explorer.
You were defying gravity in a metal tube. It felt like magic, so the branding really had to reflect that grandeur.
And as international commercial air travel grew, countries realized they had a brand new tool to project their culture and power into foreign lands.
Oh, sure.
These airlines became what we call flag carriers. Nations used highly literal, iconic motifs to project values like freedom and power and efficiency to anyone looking up at the sky.
Right, like Japan Airlines used a stylized crane.
Yep.
KLM used a royal crown. British European Airways used heraldic shields and flags.
And American Airlines went with a bald eagle dominating a globe. I mean, it was an unmistakable projection of American reach.
It's beautiful, but it makes me think of early branding like a heavy, ornate wax seal on a piece of primate, you know?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like, it carries immense prestige and tells a rich story, but applying a wax seal to a modern email makes zero sense.
Right.
So at what point does a detailed, multicolored eagle standing on a globe become a mechanical liability for a company trying to move at the speed of sound?
Because you have to paint that intricate design onto hundreds of massive bare metal fuselages.
Yeah, and printed on millions of tiny matchbooks and ticket stubs and luggage tags. The physical friction of reproducing that image must have been an absolute nightmare.
And that friction is exactly what forced a total systemic overhaul.
Okay, when did that happen?
The mechanical tipping point arrived in the 1960s with the dawn of the jet age.
Oh, of course.
You weren't just flying a few wealthy socialites on a prop plane anymore. You have wide-bodied, sleek jets like the Boeing 707 opening up massive international routes.
The scale completely changes.
Right, the volume of passengers explodes from the thousands into the millions.
And the technology managing those millions of passengers is changing just as radically as the planes themselves.
Exactly. This is when American Airlines introduces the Sabre system.
The semi-automatic business research environment.
Yes, in the early 70s. Because before Sabre, booking a flight meant calling a center where agents manually checked massive boards and index cards just to find a seat.
Which sounds exhausting.
It was. And Sabre digitized all of that onto IBM mainframes. So you move into an era of high-speed electronics, green screen terminals, and, dot matrix printers.
Right.
And against that backdrop of gleaming metal and blinking cursors, a hand-drawn, literal eagle from a Scottish hotel brochure doesn't just look folksy, it looks obsolete.
It's totally out of place. They needed a visual identity that belonged on a computer screen, not a canvas.
And airlines like Swissair and KLM had already pioneered the solution in the mid-60s. They realized the answer was ruthless standardization.
Ah.
They needed corporate colors and typefaces that could be applied identically and cheaply to a massive airplane tail, a check-in desk in Tokyo, and a flimsy paper boarding pass.
Because you cannot achieve that economy of scale with a complex, multicolored illustration.
Exactly. So the friction of the old design literally breaks the system, forcing American Airlines to act.
So what do they do?
In 1967, they hire Henry Dreyfuss, a legendary industrial designer, to revamp the interior of their planes.
Okay.
But Dreyfuss takes one look at the whole operation and realizes the exterior, the entire brand identity, needs an overhaul to match the modern interiors.
Right. The outside has to match the inside.
Right. So he brings in Unimark International, specifically designers Massimo Vignelli and Heinz Wabel. And what they do completely rewrites the rules of corporate branding.
Because Vignelli was a master of the international typographic style, right? Often called the Swiss style. And to understand why his work was so revolutionary, you really have to understand the philosophy behind this style. It emerged after World War II, driven by a desire for objective, neutral communication.
Yeah, it completely rejected the messy, nationalistic, quote-unquote, artist's hand of early illustrations.
Right. It swapped all that out for mathematical precision and strict grid systems.
Yeah.
Vignelli's primary tool wasn't illustration at all. It was typography.
Yep. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me.
Vignelli strips away the globe. He strips away the rings, the diagonal lines, and the heraldic grandeur.
Oh, the clutter.
All of it. He chooses a plain, mathematically precise font called Haas Helvetica.
A classic.
And then he does something so radically simple it borders on genius. He takes the words American and Airlines, and he just mushes them together.
Just completely removes the space.
Right. He creates a single, unified block of text, American Airlines.
But to keep it readable, he splits the color perfectly down the middle. So American is red and Airlines is blue. It relies entirely on the stark contrast of the two colors to separate the words. He's still paying homage to the U.S. flag, but he's doing it with, absolute ruthless minimalism.
And Vignelli's own philosophy on this is incredibly revealing. He said, "We proceeded by logic, not emotion, not trends and fashions.
Wow.
because he recognized that 50 years prior, there were very few corporate logos. But as global business expanded, the visual landscape became a chaotic mess of competing symbols.
Just noise everywhere.
Right. So Vignelli believed that simplicity was universally stronger than complexity. He argued that a word is infinitely better than a picture because it communicates directly without interpretation.
That makes total sense.
By focusing on clarity, the design exudes a timelessness. In fact, that specific American Airlines logo is largely credited with helping to popularize the Helvetica typeface across the entire United States.
That is so cool. It's an absolute masterpiece of logical design. It looks clean, it looks efficient, and it looks like it belongs on a supersonic jet.
Yes, it does.
But pure logic sounds amazing when you're sitting in a sterile design studio in Milan or New York, you know?
Right.
The real world isn't sterile. What happens when pure, cold mathematical logic collides with messy human attachment?
Oh, you get an all-out corporate standoff.
Yeah, because there was a massive piece missing from Vignelli's Helvetica dream.
The eagle.
The eagle. Vignelli, being this typography purist, flat out refused to draw a stylized version of the bird.
He hated the idea.
He famously said, "I wanted the eagle to be real. It has to have every feather. If you do an eagle, do it with the dignity of an eagle. Don't stylize the eagle and make a cartoon out of it."
So he just left it out entirely.
Exactly. He just left it out of his primary logo type.
He essentially told one of the largest companies in the world that their beloved 90-year-old mascot was structurally unsound for modern communication.
And I gotta push back on Vignelli here. Isn't that just monumental arrogance?
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
He's treating the brand like a math equation to be solved. But a brand isn't just a font choice designed for the passenger's intellect, you know?
No, it's not.
It's the flag the employees rally behind. If you are an employee, you don't pledge allegiance to Haas Helvetica. You pledge it to the bird.
That is such a good point. This raises an important question about who a brand identity actually serves.
Well.
Vignelli designed for clarity and intellect. The employees, particularly the flight crews, worked from the heart.
Right.
So the consequence of Vignelli's refusal to include the eagle was explosive. The American Airlines pilots literally threatened to go on strike.
That is insane to me. They were ready to ground a global fleet over a graphic design choice.
Yeah, because to the pilots, that bird was never just a nostalgic piece of clip art.
It meant something.
It was the symbol of the company they risked their lives for every time they took off. It was deeply tied to their sense of national identity and patriotism.
Wow.
Taking the eagle away didn't feel like a modern design update. It felt like a demotion of their heritage. They were being stripped of their wings.
So management is staring down the barrel of a grounded fleet. And you can't fly planes without pilots, and you can't have pilots without the bird.
No, you cannot.
So they desperately need a compromise, but Vignelli absolutely refuses to compromise his artistic integrity, right?
Right.
So the office of Henry Dreyfuss has to step in and fix the mess. They are the ones who ultimately draw that abstract, geometric, cruciform V shape.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like an eagle in mid-flight, composed of harsh angles, and they nestle it between the two capital A's, specifically for the aircraft tails. And they do this entirely to keep the peace and keep the pilots in the cockpit.
It's a brilliant collision of modernist purity and deep-rooted organizational culture.
It really is.
And despite that massive internal friction, the resulting compromise, the stark Helvetica text, alongside the geometric eagle, it functioned incredibly well.
It functioned for an astoundingly long time. I mean, that Vignelli logo survives the financial strains of the 1990s.
Yep.
It survives the tragic events of 2001, which deeply and fundamentally impacted the company and the entire industry.
Obviously, yeah.
It survives massive fleet renewals. For 45 years, it remains this reliable, steady anchor. But fast forward to 2013, and the friction returns. Everything breaks again.
Right, because the context of early 2013 is vital here. This was a remarkably dark era for the airline.
Oh, it was bad.
American Airlines was facing bankruptcy. They were undergoing a brutal restructuring. Their customer service reviews were abysmal, and they were bleeding capital.
The corporate culture was so fractured, too. They had this bizarre scandal where they fired a web designer just because he publicly posted some ideas suggesting he wanted to redesign their user interface.
Which is crazy.
Right. The internal paranoia was just off the charts.
So facing this existential threat, the executives finalize a massive merger with U.S. Airways.
Okay.
They are also taking delivery of a fleet of new planes, like the composite body Boeing 787.
It changes.
Yeah, and they are desperate to signal to the market, to Wall Street, and to terrified consumers that the bleeding has stopped.
So they bring in the London-based branding firm, Future Brand. And Future Brand decides the 45-year-old Vignelli logo has to go.
Just toss it.
Yeah, they design what they call the flight symbol. Now, if you've been to an airport recently, you know exactly what it looks like.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
It's a three-color diagonal stripe with a heavy gradient. It features a triangular projection that is supposed to bridge the gap between the shape of an airplane's tail and a stylized eagle's head in flight.
It's supposed to, anyway.
Right. And they pair it with a brand new sans serif font that mimics Helvetica but feels a bit more generic.
They completely erase the classic sharp AA and the distinct geometric eagle.
And the backlash in the design community was immediate and brutal. Writer Alyssa Walker famously called it one of the worst branding decisions ever made.
Ouch.
But the most incredible part of this 2013 rebrand is what happened with the U.S. Copyright Office.
Oh, this is fascinating.
They initially rejected the new flight symbol. They refused to copyright it.
Because copyright law requires a minimum threshold of creativity, right?
Right. Exactly.
And the office looked at this new flight symbol and determined it was essentially just a few basic geometric stripes. It was so abstract and generic that it was deemed insufficiently original.
Which is so embarrassing for a major airline.
It actually took American Airlines until 2018 to successfully secure the copyright for their own primary logo.
Wow. And when you look at how much effort went into this, you really have to ask why.
Right. Why go through all this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a fascinating, somewhat cynical utility of corporate rebranding.
Okay, lay it on me.
The 2013 redesign wasn't genuinely about achieving timeless aesthetics or improving legibility, like Vignelli's work in the 60s. It was a deliberate corporate distraction strategy.
It's the visual equivalent of shaking shiny keys.
Yes.
When a company is navigating bankruptcy, terrible PR, and a chaotic merger, the executive instinct is often to change the visual identity. The goal is to project an illusion of dynamic change. They force a fresh start visually, hoping that consumer perception will follow suit, even if the underlying operational issues, the delays, the legroom, the actual service, remain exactly the same.
It's slapping a massive racing spoiler on a minivan that has a blown engine and hoping people think it's fast.
That is a perfect analogy.
And this perfectly explains the psychological manipulation used on the employees, too. CEO Doug Parker knew the flight crews and staff were rejecting the new branding.
Just like the pilots in the 60s.
Exactly. They hated losing the classic Vignelli look. So Parker decides to put the new design to a quote-unquote democratic employee vote.
Vote.
But he uses a classic psychological trick, the decoy effect. He anchors their expectations.
Right, he presents them with a rigged choice.
Yep.
Option A is the brand new flight symbol. Option B is described as a messy retro design. Management essentially took the old Vignelli logo and clumsily smashed it onto the new airplane livery in a way that intentionally looked terrible and unresolved.
It's so sneaky. By presenting a deliberately hideous alternative, management guaranteed the employees would vote for the new flight symbol.
Of course they would.
It's brilliant and ruthless. It gave the executives exactly the design they wanted to appease Wall Street, while allowing them to turn around and claim they had total employee consensus.
And, Massimo Vignelli was still alive when the 2013 rebrand launched.
Oh, I bet he had thoughts.
His critique of this exact strategy was absolutely scathing.
He didn't hold back a single inch. Vignelli looked at the new design and said, "There was no need to change. It's been around for 45 years. The whole world knows it. This is the typical mistake that company presidents make. I'll change the logo and the company will look new, but it's the same company. They're not going to solve their problems."
He's not wrong.
He argued that the fundamental issues of a company can never be fixed with a gradient.
And Vignelli was highlighting a fundamental truth about visual communication there that I think directly impacts how you navigate the modern digital world today. Well, think about the spaces where you consume brands today. You aren't usually looking at the massive tail of a Boeing plane. You are scrolling to the bottom of a corporate web page or looking at a festival sponsor list on your phone.
Oh, right. You're hit with a barrage of 50 different tiny, complex, abstract logos crammed into a grid.
Exactly.
Oh.
And Vignelli argued decades ago that relying on abstract symbols in a cluttered environment was ridiculous.
Okay, I see.
When a logo becomes a complex abstract shape, like the 2013 flight symbol, where you really have to squint to decipher the eagle and the A, it loses its power to communicate instantly.
Just a blurry blob.
Right. Vignelli fiercely believed that a word is so much better. A clear, highly legible word cuts through the noise immediately. It doesn't require interpretation. It just speaks.
So what does this all mean for us? Because if we step back and trace this entire trajectory, American Airlines went from a literal, intricate, hand-drawn eagle borrowed from a Scottish hotel.
Which is still just amazing to me.
Right. A design perfect for projecting the romantic, exclusive magic of early flight. Then, they evolved into a masterpiece of cold mathematical logic with Vignelli's Helvetica.
A design built purely for the speed, scale, and digital reality of the jet age.
Exactly. And finally, they arrived at a highly abstract, gradient-filled symbol, a design constructed primarily as a psychological smokescreen to distract the public and the employees from a corporate meltdown.
It is a 90-year mirror. It perfectly reflects the evolution of corporate America itself. We move from romanticism and craftsmanship to sheer operational efficiency, and finally to modern public relations and perception management.
It totally changes the way you look at the tarmac. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. The next time you're staring out that terminal window, you'll know exactly what you're looking at.
It does leave us with one final thought to consider regarding the future, though.
Oh.
Think again about the canvas these designs were built for. Vignelli designed for the massive 5-story tall tail of a Boeing 747. It was a literal billboard in the sky.
Massive canvas.
But today, you interact with brands almost entirely by looking down at a 6-inch smartphone screen.
Very true.
So, as our digital screens get smaller and as our daily visual clutter increases exponentially, will modern companies eventually be forced to abandon these complex, gradient-filled, abstract shapes?
Are we due for a massive typography renaissance?
Right, like returning to the stark, text-only simplicity that Vignelli championed over half a century ago.
Will the giant eagle, after surviving strikes and mergers, finally have to surrender to just plain text? Keep an eye out for those eagles on your next flight, and keep wondering what battles were fought just to put them there.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.